Hello, and welcome to the inaugural episode of We Are The Weirdos, Mister, a podcast dedicated to all things cult, camp, queer, and creepy. I'm your host, Hilary Michelle Post, and with me today is my first guest. She is a writer, an educator, and a pop culture savant. She's the co-host of the hockey podcast Stick to Tape, and she also happens to be my very best friend, Miss Julie Gadd. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Hi, Julie.
Thanks
How are you?
for having me.
Of course.
I'm good.
You will probably be my most frequent guest, since you are my best friend and all.
I love podcasting, so anytime you want to have me on, I will be here.
And you love all things queer and creepy, just like me.
That's true.
All right. So for this first episode, I thought it would be apropos to kick things off with a discussion of one of my favorite films, the namesake of this podcast, 1996's The Craft. For anyone unfamiliar with the film, first off, please go watch it immediately. I cannot stress enough how much I adore this movie. The story, the cast, the themes, the aesthetics, it's all perfection. Even when the movie is complete trash, it's like the most glorious trash. But before you see the film, we will be talking about spoilers in this episode, obviously, but I'll also issue a trigger warning. The movie deals with subjects of suicide, sexual assault, racism, so if you are sensitive to such things, please proceed with caution. So, Julie, you were kind enough to rewatch The Craft at my behest. How long had it been since you had last watched it before you watched it this week?
I want to say it's in the neighborhood of 10 years. I haven't seen this movie forever. So it was like I had to go look for it. I don't know where. It was not streaming on Netflix, so I had to go find other sundry ways. But I did rewatch it, and like it had been a really long time. I remembered some of it. I remembered certain things, but I did not remember the whole thing.
Do you remember when the first time you watched it? Did you grow up with it like I did, or did you watch it later in life?
No, I grew up. I watched it when I was younger, but I don't remember where, and I must not have been very many times. I don't think I'd seen it that much. I'm sure we watched it back in college at least, but
probably.
But that was probably the last time because I seriously haven't seen this movie in years.
This was one of the movies that I watched so often growing up, and I remember always going to the video store and renting it over and over and over again. So let's just go through the movie generally, the main points of the film. Because to me, the overall movie is great, but there's just some really iconic moments and quotes throughout that I just rewatched it this morning, and just thinking of all the little things in it that are just part of my vernacular that I reference all the time without realizing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the very beginning, all right, so it starts with that gazebo shot. With all the girls in the gazebo, there's a thunderstorm, there's a million candles, they're chanting around this altar. And seeing that as a little girl, it was hashtag goals.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're just I want to do that with... It wasn't even necessarily the magic part, per se. Because, I did get into magic when I was really young, but I was just I want to be outside, I want to light a bunch of candles, I want to be with my girlfriends. And just the movie as a whole is, I don't know, relatable themes of just a really close clique. Especially if you were weird in school. You know what I mean?
Point of clarification, why have we never done that? What's wrong with us?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I was just thinking that this morning. I was I'm an adult now. I could do this if I wanted to, whenever I wanted to, and I haven't yet, and that's horseshit.
Foolish.
All right, so the movie starts with Sarah arriving to LA. Her family just moved there, and though it's not explicitly said, it's kind of implied that Sarah had attempted to commit suicide, and this is probably just meant to be a fresh start for her overall. Yeah. And one thing that I'll note about Sarah's parents is usually in stories like these, kids face all sorts of adversity, and one of the things usually are parents. But Sarah's dad is like one of the coolest, chillest, not annoying parents in movies of coming of age films. You know what I mean? Which I didn't
Yeah,
appreciate.
he is pretty chill. Yeah.
But the first scene when they move into the house and that homeless guy shows up with the snake, there's, I mean, one of the theories of him, and he comes into play a little bit later into the movie again, but is that he is supposed to be kind of like a soothsayer type character, that he's
Yeah.
not actually there to hurt Sarah, that he knows something bad's going to happen to her, is trying to warn her. Especially the symbolism with the snake, because later in the film, Nancy kind of identifies with the snake. So, watching it in retrospect, you kind of, when you the first time you see the movie, you wouldn't get that. You would think it's like a threatening act, but in retrospect, you could see why that theory would hold water.
Yeah.
And then Sarah goes to the school, and we meet the other three main characters, Bonnie, Rochelle, and Nancy. Now, I knew, before I saw this movie, I knew Fairuza Balk from other stuff from when I was little. She was in Return to Oz. Did you ever see Return to Oz?
I don't think so.
Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I would have to do a whole episode on that movie. That movie is so fucked up. But it has
Are you gonna make me watch all these movies and then record a podcast after I'm like going, what the?
Maybe. I just like keeping notes. Julie hasn't watched this one either. No, that remember that was a podcast idea we had that one night we were out with our other best friend Heather, and I said we could just make a whole podcast of me making you and Heather watch really bizarre fucking movies, and it would just be called "What the fuck did I just watch?"
I mean, you could do it as a segment for this podcast if you wanted. Like, you could always have, if you don't have anything to talk about, you can be like, please watch this. Let's do this. You could.
I'll just like cut to an audio bit of Heather Hare just being like, "Hey Heather, what do you think of the movie?" And she's like, "What the fuck, Hilary? What?" That's it. That's it. That's Heather's input.
Really.
Excuse me.
Oh, I just wanted to touch back. One thing I remember from the opening sequence the most is the first thing she unpacks in her room is a photograph. Because I don't feel like you knew at that point that that was her mom.
Right. It never explicitly. I guess it's just supposed to be inferred. It isn't explicitly said until about.
Until they come over to
the movie.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's a good point. Sarah, we find out her mother died giving birth to her, and her mother is significant because the general theme of this movie, is magic and witchcraft, but it's implied that Sarah is, quote, like a natural witch, that she perhaps inherited her powers through her mom. And that's actually an actual theme in real life paganism too. There are people who refer themselves as natural witches, when in reality all that is multi-generational. They inherited it from their parents, they learned it through family as opposed to just starting it independently. But that does come into play in terms of Sarah being inherently more powerful than the other girls. But when we meet when we meet the other three girls at the school, they're walking through, this is a very Catholic high school, but Bonnie is reading from an almanac, and she says that the almanac said today would bring a new beginning, or something to that effect. So Bonnie is like on high alert for a fourth for their circle. And Nancy says, one of my first favorite lines from the movie. Bonnie says that there's going to be an arrival. Nancy says, "Yeah, wonderful, I'm getting my rag." Nancy also makes a joke. The security guard walks past, the female security guard, and she said, "Maybe she'll be our fourth." She says, "I love a woman in uniform." And this is one of a couple different times where Nancy makes like a sapphic sort of joke.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the shorthand of this whole podcast could be how Fairuza Balk shaped me sexually. Like, Fairuza Balk is my favorite kind of hot. She is the mark me down as scared and horny type of sexy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
She's hot but also terrifying. Her, Eva Green, I think falls in that category too.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Michelle Gomez, 100%.
Oh yeah.
Who else do we? Oh, we meet Skeet Ulrich's character. This is Sarah's like love interest, Chris, right? Do you think Skeet Ulrich is attractive in general?
No, not at all.
Really? Like not just in this movie, but like
No.
in general.
No.
Really?
I honestly, I don't think I haven't seen. What else have I seen him in?
Bitch, Scream.
Yeah, no, I've never seen that. I saw it like once, and I was way too young.
Oh my
I
god.
was too young. It scared me, and I have never watched it.
Oh, dude, he's beautiful. Well, that's the funny thing about Skeet Ulrich. In this movie, I don't think he's attractive at all, and it's not just because he's being a douche. Like he just doesn't look good in this movie. But God, one of Scream. Scream was probably only like a year after this, and he's beautiful in Scream. I want you to Google a picture of Skeet Ulrich in Scream. He's beautiful, and he's on Riverdale now.
Oh God. With the beard, yes. Without the beard, no. Not at all. Yeah. Well, hey, that's. Oh, that's him in Scream, I think.
Isn't he beautiful?
No. Beard only.
That's just something notable about this is it's like the only movie I've ever found Skeet Ulrich unattractive, like just completely not attracted to whatsoever. To the point where you have no idea why Sarah is even remotely interested in him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he is a huge tool. Usually if a character's like a huge tool bag, but they're really hot, it's not a good excuse, but you're at least like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. But if he's a huge douchebag and like average, why? Why is she into him whatsoever?
Yeah.
Are you still looking?
I'm looking at the IMDb. There was something I wanted to look at. I had a reason to come here. And now I can't remember what it was. Oh yeah, now I know what it was. Okay, anyways, go ahead, move on. Keep going. This was for me.
No. What were you looking up? I want to know.
So we were talking about like actors in this movie, and like I was trying to I noted something in my head about the guy that plays Nancy's stepdad.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm trying to double check. Oh yes. So the guy that plays Nancy's stepdad is what's his name? John Caplios. Anyways, he was in the Canadian vampire cop drama Forever Night, and I just was like, hey, it's that guy. I love that show.
That's so on brand for you. There's so many people in this fucking movie. Like Neve Campbell, Breckenmeyer, Rachel True. And of all those people, the one that Julie's like, how do you know that guy? Oh, this rando that was a Canadian.
First off, have you never seen Forever Night? It's the best show ever. It's so good.
Okay. Noted.
I said it is, and never mind. I'll keep it to myself.
No.
No. I was just gonna say like. The female lead from Forever Night is also the old lady in The Good Witch, like the mean mayor in the Good Witch movies. So I'm that person.
And just like that, it all comes full circle.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right? Yeah. Oh my god, that's right. As soon as I saw oh my god, what's her name? Christine Taylor. I was like, oh my god, Marsha.
Yeah, another person who's since become a huge star.
Oh yeah, no joke. I forgot Neve Campbell was in this movie, actually. Because, like I said, I hadn't seen it for such a long time, and I was like, oh yeah!
Yeah. What has Neve Campbell been up to? I said I saw her in Scream 4, and that was like 4 years ago?
I've never seen these Scream movies.
Well, speaking of Neve
She
Campbell.
was she was in Skyscraper. She's been in House of Cards. That's what she's been up to.
Oh, okay. That's fair. I don't watch that, but that's fair. That's legit. Um, Speaking of Neve Campbell, she plays Bonnie, whose character we find out has a lot of burn scars. So all these girls are outcasts for whatever reason. Nancy's is, lower class. I mean, for like an LA, presumably private school, she's probably, you can kind of infer she's probably one of the poorer kids in general. Rochelle,
Which begs the question, why is she at Catholic school in the first place?
I thought,
Like,
I could not stop thinking about that this whole time I was watching it this time. It's like, maybe it's not a private school, maybe it's like free to go to, but yeah, why? Why the fuck?
well, that's the thing. Like, I guess in some ways she's an incomplete character because we don't know why the fuck she's there. You know what I mean? Like, maybe there was money left over that was allotted for her to go there. Maybe she's smart and we don't know. Like, because it doesn't say whether they're like they get good grades or not, does it?
Uh-uh.
Yeah.
No.
So, I mean, like, also, for that matter, like, don't you think that like studying and teaching yourself magic requires some sort of like at least some sort of aptitude? So maybe she was smart and she was there like in a scholarship sort of way.
That's fair. That's a good theory. I'll buy that.
I mean,
You want to talk about
because the
incomplete
other two I
characters?
can see. What? Yeah.
Poor Rachel True, Rochelle's character.
Oh right.
She's the only black
Yeah.
character in the entire movie. I'll cut him some slack because it's 1996. But Jesus Christ. And like that's her only character trait, is she is the black one. The only adversity she faces, not only, it's a huge deal to deal with racism. But like she's the only of the girls that we never see her parents, we never see her home life.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about her. And I'll talk more on Rachel True later, actually, because I feel really bad for her. But we'll get into that later. But yeah, so we meet these girls. We figure out all of the adversity they face. Bonnie has low self-esteem because of her burn scars. Rochelle faces racism specifically from Marsha's character, Laura Lizzie. I just forgot the actress's name. You just said it.
Christine Taylor.
Thank you. And then, Nancy's poor. And Sarah is suicidal, depressed, I guess. And when they finally meet, like when the four of them meet, they convince her to go shopping with them. So my next favorite line is morbid, but it still makes me laugh. The girls notice Sarah's scars on her wrist, and that's one thing I love about Sarah is she doesn't make excuses or try to hide it. When they say it, she's just kind of like, I slit my wrists. And Bonnie grabs her hand, takes a close look at the scars, and says, "You even did it the right way," which isn't funny on the surface, but like while they're walking away, Rochelle is just like, "Right way? What? How do you know the right way?" She's like, "Shut up, Rochelle."
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I
clocked
that. I was like, oh my god.
I love dark morbid humor like that. It always cracks me up. So we see him go shopping at this magic store, and the girls steal, and it's clearly they do it on a regular basis. And the store clerk knows that they steal. Like, she even says something to Sarah, like, "Oh, you're actually going to pay for your stuff, like your friends." Why didn't she ever say anything to them? Do you know what I mean? If these three girls came into my store all the time and I knew they were stealing shit, and she's just like, okay, whatever. And boys and girls, stealing is wrong. However, all magic stuff like that is stupid expensive. Like, oh my god. Unreasonably expensive. That's why I buy all my shit at like Dollar Tree. I make it work. I'm thrifty. but actual metaphysical stores are ridiculously expensive. But stealing is wrong.
Oh yeah. The last metaphysical store, like a store like that I went to, was this cute little place in Windsor, Ontario. I was just walking around, like we went and got brunch because we could, and we went, and it was beautiful. Like there was like tubs full of pretty rocks, and I was like, this place is amazing.
There's a place.
But I liked
There's
it a lot. It was fun.
There's a place in downtown Raleigh called the Holy Rose. And when Heather came down here a couple years ago for my birthday, she and I went in there, and it was great. I love that place. Everything's expensive, because that's just how things are. But it's really great. They just had, like, a cat that lives in the store that was just chilling and napping.
Yeah.
And, of course, Heather and I, being Heather and I, were just like, oh, the kitty! And we're petting it. It just didn't even open its eyes. Like, it did not give two shits.
But yeah, no, it's weird that she doesn't, like, ask them not to steal. Maybe it's, like, she's fostering the craft. I don't know. Or maybe she sees, like, maybe it's not worth her time. Like, honestly, would you want to get on the wrong side of Nancy? Because I don't think I would.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, it's probably fostering a second generation of
users, or not users,
witches.
practitioners, that's the word. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
after they leave the store, the man with the snake, the homeless man with the snake from the first scene, spots him on the street again, starts tracing Sarah. And he even says, I want to talk to you. I had a dream about you. In the dream, you died. And that's creepy for anyone to say, let alone a strange homeless man carrying a snake chasing you down a sidewalk. So they're reasonably, understandably frightened, and they run away from him, and they cross the street. And as he tries to follow them, he gets hit by a car. Right? So then the girls run away, reconvene, and they interpret that as a sign that Sarah was the missing part of their coven, of their circle, and that the four of them together, they can perform magic. So they discuss, it's the first time they, like, talk about the magic with Sarah, like, explicitly say, this is what we practice, this is what we believe. They mentioned the deity Manon, which, for the record, is not an actual deity. It was made up for this movie.
I was wondering about that, because, how is that spelled?
Manon. But it's pronounced Manon, like French Manon.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was made up specifically for the film. They had a consultant on set, an actual witch consultant, to make sure that things that they were doing. That's another thing I love about this movie is, for the most part, all of the stuff is accurate, in terms of practicing magic. But the consultant recommended, a made-up deity for two reasons. One, because invoking an actual deity could be considered offensive. They don't want to offend anyone. They wanted the magic to be realistic enough to be respectful and understandable, but not so much that it felt like an indictment on magic, since things go bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And they were doing, like, actual spells, for lack of a better... Everything they were doing was so realistic that the consultant was like, if you actually, like, perform the ceremony and invoke an actual deity, you don't know what could happen. Which is fair.
Yeah. I'm glad they were being safe about it, and that they consulted someone instead of just, like, did it. If that makes sense. Like...
Yeah. But at first, Sarah is hesitant about it, but it's exacerbated by the fact that Nancy's a bitch to her. Like, she says something bitchy to her again. Nancy just has chronic bitch syndrome. That's one of the reasons I love Nancy, is because there are moments where she shows, even without, like, saying something, she is clearly very empathetic, but has, like, a guard built up where she's just a bitch and she can't help it. Which I think is very true to life. But Rochelle's, Sarah runs off. Rochelle makes the comment she'll be back, which, ends up being true. And And then Sarah and Chris go on a date. And he asks her to come back to his place. No one's there, and sex is heavily implied. And Sarah immediately was like, no, I don't want to. There's no waffling, no wavering. She's like, no, I want to go home. And at the time, he's just like, okay, whatever. And then the next day at school, Sarah finds out that he told all of his friends and spread around school that not only did they have sex, which they didn't, but that she was a horrible lay.
Oh, boys.
Yeah, exactly. That's like the best way to summarize it. Just like, ugh, boys.
Especially teen boys. Like, all of these folks are too old to be teens, but there are certain things about it that are very real to teens.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I guess I noticed with Nancy and the girls, when they, I don't know if it was them after they do their spells together, they're like laying in the grass or whatever, like they're laying there, and like it must be after they do their spells. If you want me to wait, I can wait.
I know what part you're talking about. We'll get there. I think I know what you're talking
about. Okay, all right, I'll wait.
Hold it.
I'll wait.
Say that. Oh, and I did mention that Chris tries to warn Sarah about the girls because they have a bad reputation. Everyone at the school actually already pretty much knows that they're witches. But then Nancy also warns Sarah about Chris. She says,
yes,
he spreads disease. I speak from experience. Which, is even a better question of like, why did Nancy sleep with him? Why? Why would you? The conundrum of this entire podcast is, why does anyone like Chris? Chris Hooker is the worst. Everybody still likes him. I don't understand.
Yeah, no, why does anybody like Chris? Like, that's the other thing, too. Like, we've already discussed, not even cute. Actually, never mind. That's actually real to teenagers, too, because I have several children. I have several kids who are into boys that are not cute, and I'm like, why? So, that's actually true to teens, too.
Yeah.
So, I don't know why they do what they do. But, yeah.
So Nancy and the girls actually are the ones that go to Sarah and let her know that this rumor had been spread. And Nancy, comments, basically, I tried to tell you. Like, see, I was right. And from this point forward, the girls are friends. It's never explicitly said. It's just from here on out, Sarah continues to hang out with the girls.
Yeah.
And then this is kind of like the whole sequence of where we actually see more about the girls' lives, that we see what it is they're dealing with. We see Rochelle at swim practice, where Laura Lizzie is being a racist. See you next Tuesday.
She is too, like, it was like, I guess, like, don't, like, I'm not gonna be like some sort of Pollyanna that I didn't know racism exists, but like the racism jumped out at me. I was like, ow! I was like, what the fuck?
Right. Like, especially in like Los Angeles.
Just a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
Yeah. It was
also
a lot.
the invoking of the term negroids,
right?
Which I have never heard before or since, except for the craft. What even? It's like, Laura Lizzie, you're just making shit up.
Yeah.
She's just inventing Korean slurs.
Oh, for sure.
Then we see Bonnie at the doctor trying to get treatment for her scars. And now, I'm no doctor. But I don't think the way one heals scars is by stabbing it repeatedly with a needle. Do you know what I'm saying? Because they have
that was weird. Like, I don't know what that was supposed to do.
Exactly. Skin grafting, etc. I'm sure if I'm wrong, someone will tell me, but I wasn't aware that this was a thing. maybe laser treatment, maybe? But it was 1996, it probably didn't exist.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's just a plot device for us to show that how bad Bonnie's scars are. Which, just as a sidebar, not to diminish Bonnie's, struggles, they're not that bad. B, they don't cover nearly as much of her body as is implied. And C, even with scars, you're still fucking Neve Campbell. Do you know what I'm saying?
They weren't even on her face, were they?
No.
Yeah, I also thought that was weird. Like, but I mean, like, I guess we all have our body issues, like, or whatever. But like, her face was still really pretty, so I don't know why that was like. But I guess she needed to love the skin she was in.
Also, during this montage, we see Sarah flashing back to her suicide attempt. And we also see Nancy's home life for the first time. You see that she lives in a trailer, and that as soon as she gets home, like, the power gets shut off. Her mom is clearly inebriated and shrill. Her stepdad is gross. But then after we establish, all the girls' issues, we see them go on their field trip to cast the spell that kind of gets the plot rolling. The bus scene is my favorite scene. 2 reasons. One,
oh yeah,
I love the shot of all these little girls like staring at Nancy, and she just like lowers her sunglasses and ominously looks at them. And then when they're getting off the bus, their bus driver says, "Well, girls, watch out for those weirdos." Nancy says, "We are the weirdos, mister," which is the most iconic line. That's why the title of my show. So the girls all cast spells, basically. And I think the moral of this scene is, especially in terms of performing magic, is what you say versus your intent. You know what I mean? Because the exception of Nancy, the way all their spells are worded is very neutral, positive, you know what I mean? Which all spells should be. But if there's any negative intent behind that it can go badly.
Yeah.
So Bonnie wants to be beautiful outside as well as in. Rochelle basically wants racist assholes like Laura Lizzie to see the error of their ways. Sarah wants to be able to accept love, especially from Chris Hooker. Don't know why. And Nancy just wants all the power of Manon. What would you have asked for in high school? If you were casting a spell like that, what would you have asked for if you were there?
Oh my god. Oh Lord. I think if I, like, out of those spells or just in general?
In general.
Oh, I probably would have asked to lose weight. We didn't love our body back then, but we're fine now.
What would you ask for now?
Oh God, to be healthy.
Oh, that's fair.
Like,
that's such like a mature, responsible answer. I'm just like, I want $1 million.
no, I would listen. I would love $1 million, but I think, yeah. I was just thinking about all the things that I could cast a spell for, and yeah, no, like, I'll go with my mature, responsible adult answer to be healthy. So,
and all their spells.
wait, what would you have asked for?
What would I have asked for?
Mm-hmm.
Oh God.
As a teen,
I mean, probably to be skinny too. But that just makes me sick because I look at pictures of when I was in high school and I wasn't even fat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
God. And now I've asked for $1 million. No, that's not true. I mean, I I would probably ask
for $2 million.
like Dr. Evil. Like, I'll ask for $1 million. They're like, that's actually not very much when you consider taxes.
I have a comment about that with regards to the craft.
Oh, I know. I have that written down too.
Okay.
I think we're both going to say the same thing. Anyway, so all their spells start to work pretty quickly. Within the next couple scenes, we see Chris is following Sarah around like a fucking puppy. We see Laura Lizzie's hair starting to fall out.
Perfect. Actually, of all the things, like, good. She fucking deserved it.
Good. Exactly. That's what kills me. It's like, if the whole moral of the story, because like Bonnie's scars miraculously heal, and she just like she just kind of becomes a bitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's my comment about that, by the way. Like, okay, she used magic to heal her scars, but she went to the fucking doctor, and now that's messed up that fucking treatment for how many other people, because it's not going to work the next time. Like, some normie is going to come in there and they said, look at these great results we had, and then somebody else is going to get that treatment and it's not going to work.
You just blew my mind. I never even thought about that.
Like, maybe that's a very much, bitch, you are thinking about this too hard, but also
After their spells all start to work, except for Nancy's spell hasn't worked yet. We have that scene of them laying in the grass. You said you had something about that you wanted to.
I thought this was like very real to the teen experience, because it almost seemed like both Bonnie and Rochelle they liked Sarah more than Nancy, and Nancy was feeling left out. And she like puts her headphones on and she storms away, and they're like they're real catty, like, she's just mad because her spell hasn't worked. When in reality, she's feeling replaced. You know what I mean? And I thought that was very true to the teen experience, because, you know, I'm around them all the time.
That makes sense. So. I really never even thought about it like that.
I like, that was kind of how that's how it read to me when I watched it. On what day did I watch it? Was it yesterday? 2 days ago? Wednesday. So Wednesday when I watched it, like, that was something that stuck out to me. I was like, oh, that's a very, because I was like, God, all these women are way too old to be in high school. But to me, that was a very high school attitude. Like, you know what I mean? She's feeling replaced. Because, like, it could be that she's like upset her spell's not working also, but they were, all three of them were laying in the grass together. They were talking about this and talking about that. Like, they were talking about how Laura Lizzie had to wear a hat, and they were talking about, like, oh my God, Bonnie, you know, like, she wasn't beautiful before, but like, Nancy was left out. And that, I don't know, to me that was a very like teen thing. They don't deal with or process emotions well like that, especially when they feel like they're being replaced. And that's actually a very human thing anyways, I think. Like, I would still feel like that as an adult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, like, I guess in some ways, like, the life that Nancy has led is so rough. Like, parts of it are so rough, like that makes sense, like that powerlessness and the will to submit to a higher power to get yourself out of that situation is absolutely understandable.
Yeah. Oh, there is one more scene, I guess, before Nancy's spell actually starts to work. The sleepover scene, where they play Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board.
Oh,
another iconic scene. Did you ever play that?
Yes.
Sleepovers and stuff?
Yes.
I think every girl our age has played that game at least once.
I think it was.
And Nancy makes another sapphic joke. Sarah's explaining the game, and she's like, and you put your fingers under, and Nancy's like, you put your fingers where? Do you even catch that? It's like a throwaway joke before the scene transitions. Yeah. Played that so many times when I was little. Mm-hmm. There's even a show on Netflix, Hulu, 1 and 2, called Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It looks like garbage, so I haven't watched it. But um,
I recently just got access to Hulu, so I'm gonna
oh.
watch Gay Pirates. Apparently, Black Sails is about gay pirates, so I'm in.
Mom and I just watched Miranda again from beginning to end.
Miranda.
Yeah, his mom started watching Call of the Midwife. Call
Mm-hmm.
of the Midwife, and Miranda Hart is in that. I was like, oh, if you like Miranda Hart, let me show you some stuff. So I made Mom watch all of it.
It's weird because isn't Gary and Lucifer? Yeah, I didn't like Lucifer. It didn't catch with me. I watched a bunch of it and I didn't like it.
Yeah, me either. I watched the first and a half seasons.
Isn't that weird?
And
Because it's like something I should and would like, but I'm like, no, no.
yeah, oh yeah, agreed. It's like it's one of those shows. Just like, oh, this was made for me, and it is not.
Yeah.
I think partly because I'm also so into Supernatural. It's like I only have room for one TV Lucifer in my heart. I don't have room for you, Tom Ellis. I'm sorry.
Ooh, my favorite movie, Lucifer, has to be the one guy that the guy from the Constantine one. I love Constantine. Fight me.
I've never
I
seen
love.
Constantine.
Fuck you! I can't believe it. You've never seen Constantine? Oh
You've
my
never seen
god.
Scream, okay?
Okay, but Constantine. It's garbage. I love it. You should watch it.
Yeah,
I love
maybe.
it. Tilda Swinton's in it as a Gabriel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did not know that. Maybe.
I cannot remember the name of the fucking guy that plays Lucifer. Now I gotta Google it so you know. Anyways, yeah. Where are we at in this? Oh,
Oh
the
yeah, that was the
yeah.
tangent. Okay, so
Whose house were they at?
Bonnie's, because Bonnie's mom walks in, and she's like, "Are you?" What she said? She's like, "Are you guys doing the pot or something like that?"
Oh my god.
Um, but then we have seen Nancy's piece of shit stepfather has a heart attack. Um,
Yeah, Skanky from Forever Night.
Skanky has a heart attack, and and clearly like Nancy did it. Like it happens during an argument with Nancy, and she's given him
Doesn't
full.
she imply that he diddled her or something like that?
It's implied in the scene. She's like, she just got out of the shower. She's wearing a robe, and he like makes a comment about how it's see through, and he kind of grabs at her.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to
Well, yeah,
pat.
no. He grabs at her and then the mom is like, ha ha ha, don't touch her, and like smacks him, and he starts to go after her, and
Yeah,
then Nancy like he Nancy's standing there pissed off, and it's clearly like I don't know if it's like a magical outburst or
yeah. It's very Carrie White from Carrie. You know, she like blows up a toaster or something, and then
yeah.
he dies from
Yeah.
a heart attack.
Yeah.
Um,
So
but when he dies, they get to collect his life insurance policy, um, which is for $175,000. Okay, and to Nancy and her mom, it's a huge deal. It's like a life-changing amount of money, and they are really excited. I yes, it's a lot of money, but I was just laughing to myself because like for 2019, it's not that much money.
no, not at all. Like
Really not.
$175,000 would pay off my current debt,
Yeah.
but it's not like it would be enough for me, but for what they buy,
No.
I
Yeah. Like.
but I don't know if that's me thinking about it in 2019 and not thinking about it in 1996, because
Yeah.
probably some of that stuff is totally doable for 1996.
Yeah. I have to check like the conversion rate.
Right? Let me see if I can do it. I'll vamp for me. Just keep talking.
The girls go to Nancy's new apartment. Her and mom get this really nice new apartment in like a skyrise. Very minimalistic, very simple, very chic, white. Everything's white and vintage. And Nancy's mom has a jukebox with nothing that plays nothing but Connie Francis records. And it was like a dream she had since she was little, that she always wanted a jukebox that just played Connie Francis records. If you could have a jukebox that was filled with music by only one artist or band, who would it be?
Queen.
Valid, yeah.
I almost said Jonas Brothers, but Queen.
I know you did. I can like hear the wheels turning.
I'm currently wearing a Jonas Brothers shirt, and I've dreamed about the Jonas Brothers 2 nights in a row. So I got them on the brain.
Like you do.
If you would like to know, 175,000 American dollars in 1996 is $280,215.26 in today's dollars.
So not that big of a difference. Like a quarter of a million.
No, but it still isn't that much money.
Yes, it really is.
280,000, I'm like, that's not that much.
No, it's not that much.
Like, there are people with a higher freaking mortgage or higher freaking like line on. You can watch House Hunters, and 280,000 is nothing. So, yeah. You know what I mean. But for 1996, I guess. Yeah. But like, I mean, they buy like they get the jukebox, they get the huge apartment. I'm like, why would you buy that huge apartment? Why wouldn't you just get like a nicer trailer and save the money for other stuff? But
yeah, like, did they buy the apartment?
But it's also,
because if you rent it, they can't afford that for more than like a year.
No, it has to be a bought. No, it has to be like, it's probably a condo. It's probably a purchased apartment. But also, even then, like, do people even buy those things outright, or do they mortgage them? I don't understand how it works. I've never bought anything that big. Like,
we are officially overthinking this way too much.
Well, I mean, there's the apartment, there's the custom jukebox, there's the car, you know, and then like, I don't know.
Oh yeah,
I just prefer them freaking out $175,000. I'm like, why are you freaking out? That's nothing. So, yeah.
Yes. So after this, they go have a ceremony at the beach.
Wait, you forgot the part in the apartment where they do the glamour.
The glamour, which is an actual spell, is a real spell. That I have done. That was along the lines of like, light as a feather, stiff as a board, like go to sleepover games and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Nancy's comment because Sarah performs a glamour, which she can, is a spell that's just basically an illusion spell. She turns her eyes brown and she turns her hair blonde. Which, sidebar, speaking of Sarah's hair, was a wig. And not a very good one. Because right before this, she filmed Empire Records. Have you ever seen Empire Records?
Yeah.
Yes. I just actually rewatched that last week. Her character attempts suicide in that, too. So, Robin Tunney was having a weird moment in her career. But that character shaves her hair all off, so she had to wear a wig. And I was listening to a little bit of the director's commentary today. And I eventually turned it off because it wasn't very interesting. But Andrew Fleming said they even considered using CGI to like fix her hairline because the wig was so bad.
Which is weird because they even found a worse wig for Christine Taylor later in the movie.
Don't even get me started on that fucking wig. That like Halloween USA
mm-hmm.
straight out of the bag, shiny synthetic bullshit wig. Oh god.
I know, it was great. It made to be fair, I didn't notice that the wig was so bad, but I never really look at stuff like that. Only when it's like truly heinously hideous do I notice.
And like the wig itself isn't that bad. The wig itself looks real. It's just they didn't do, it wasn't a lace front. Like the line is very obvious. But otherwise it's fine. But they go to invoke the spirit, which right in and of itself you can tell this is when things are going to go bad because Nancy's spell worked. Good or bad, it worked, but she's still power hungry. She still wants more power.
Yeah.
Um, they go and they call the corners, which those who don't know, you call the corners in magic north, south, east, and west, and what tower you are, north, south, east, or west, corresponds with an element, earth, air, fire, water, and then that is associated with your astrology sign. So I'm a Taurus, which means I'm an earth sign, which means my watchtower is north.
Okay, I'm an Aries, so I'm a fire sign. So which one's mine?
You are south. So of course the spell works and it backfires. Just it is backfire because of the invoking the spirit, but everything kind of starts to go back to backfire. Like we've said, Bonnie is just kind of a bitch. Laura Lizzie's hair is falling out like big time now, like almost completely. And again, to me, not a backfire. Fuck Laura Lizzie.
Not at all. She deserved that. Yeah, fuck that girl.
Yeah, that was a really bad example because fuck Laura Lizzie. Rochelle shouldn't feel bad about it. But that's a whole other conversation. No. And then Sarah's spell backfires because Chris is obsessed with her. He's like basically stalking her. And she agrees to go out.
I feel like he's also implying that she is literally the only thing he's thinking of. He's ignoring his body. Like he's like, I can't think, I can't eat. Like he is suffering and like in not a way that I think she expected him to. Right.
And she agrees to go on a date with him, probably for that reason, because she feels bad. She knows that, it's her fault that he's like this. But then he attempts to rape her. And fortunately, she gets away. But I'm always so conflicted on this whole scene because, as we've established very well by now, Chris Hooker is the worst.
Yeah.
But, at this point, all the shit he thinks he's doing is because of the spell. So usually I'm all for a good rape revenge story. Like, give me your spoon in your grave, give me your last house on the left. I love seeing, rapists get killed. But Nancy immediately, when she finds out, immediately goes to this party to confront Chris. And, it's not his fault. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess at this point we've established that this is just kind of a tipping point. Like, Nancy already hated his guts. And she does a glamour to make herself look like Sarah and fools around with Chris and then turns back into herself to fuck with him. Sarah comes to try to convince Nancy. It's like, okay, he's scared. You did it. Congratulations. Let's go. And Chris says, you're just jealous. And that is the thing that really makes her snap.
Yeah.
She wigs out on him and uses her powers, basically. Again, she goes all Carrie White and pushes him out a window, and he dies. Sarah feels guilty.
I think it's guilt more than anything.
Yeah. She wants to leave the group.
Sorry. No, I was just gonna say, that's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to struggle with, too, because we're like, oh, Chris is the worst, and I think, you have to remember also he's a teenager, and teenagers are the worst. And sometimes they do grow out of that shit, but Chris is never going to get the chance. You know what I mean? And that could just be her residual guilt from that. But, it sucks every time I have to give a shitty teenager some leeway because they're teenager. Grown up yet.
You're a better person than I. That's a good point. Easy to forget, when all the actors are like 30.
Yeah, it is. It actually really is easy to forget. It's easy to forget because they're all old. They're all half in their either mid-20s or their 30s, and you're just like, that's right, they're teenagers. And it's hard because you don't get that. Sometimes you don't get that authentic teenage kind of thing because teenagers do shit because they think it's funny and they don't understand the consequences of their actions. But when you see people that are clearly older doing that, you're just like, What? Like, it doesn't make, or you're not as empathetic, I guess. I don't know. Whatever.
No, you're right. So Sarah, she calls the girls out, first of all. I forgot about that scene where she, explicitly states to Nancy, stuff has gone too far. Bonnie, you've become a bitch. She notably, doesn't say anything to Rochelle, mind you, because Rochelle didn't do anything wrong. But after the Chris thing, that's her breaking point, and she wants to leave the coven. And since Nancy invoked the spirit, she's more powerful. She can read Sarah's mind. The girls gang up on Sarah at school. Nancy, another iconic Nancy line was like, in the old days, if a witch betrayed her coven, they'd kill her. And the girls are haunting Sarah's dreams. It's a bad scene. And Sarah goes to the store, the metaphysical store place, talks to the storekeeper lady. And the lady tells her, you got your powers from your mother, you're a natural witch. You are capable of invoking the spirit and not taking it to a bad place like Nancy does. And essentially tells her that's the only way you can, beat Nancy is invoking the spirit. The girls send a glamour to the store, scare Sarah off. She doesn't finish the ceremony. She goes home. The girls have done another glamour spell to try to convince Sarah that her parents have died in a plane crash.
So fucked up.
So fucked up. And then Sarah had commented earlier in the movie that she used to have nightmares of seeing bugs and snakes everywhere. So the girls make Sarah hallucinate bugs and snakes everywhere. Now, even when you're not afraid of certain bugs, even if you're not afraid of snakes, because I'm not afraid of snakes, swarms of anything, terrifying. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I see...
Oh my god, the bugs heaping out of the toilet bowl, I think is the worst part of that scene for me.
Yes, it's awful.
That was awful.
Awful. And a lot of those animals, too, were practical. Those are all practical effects. They had, 1,000 snakes for this fucking scene. Yeah, it's crazy. And I also think it's important to note that, this movie is kind of genre... it's undefinable as a genre. Because it really doesn't become a horror movie until, the final act. At this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So up until now, it'd be, a coming-of-age film, a fantasy film, black comedy. And this is the point where it's, full-blown horror. But Nancy, Bonnie, and Rochelle show up, and Nancy slits Sarah's wrists. And Sarah says, it's not real. She says, well, then why are you still bleeding?
Bleeding.
But Sarah invokes the spirit. The spirit saves her, Manal, as it were, and defeats Nancy. And the film ends with Bonnie and Rochelle no longer have their powers. Sarah's kind of like, hey, fuck you. And Nancy is in a hospital.
I just looked at her IMDb and she was in the 1986 version of The Worst Witch, and I kind of want to watch it.
You've never seen The Worst Witch?
I have seen the Netflix remake, but I have not seen the original. The Netflix remake is actually really good. I watched the first season. It was really good. I liked it a lot.
Oh, yes. I probably watched The Worst Witch more than I did Return to Oz, to be honest. Oh, God. 1986 Worst Witch. Tim Curry is in it.
I was going to speak about him earlier when we were talking about terrifying and hot because Darkness from Legend.
Oh, yeah. Fucking almost every role he's ever played. Yeah, even if you don't watch the whole movie, when we're done, you need to YouTube Tim Curry's scene from The Worst Witch.
Okay.
And report back to me, because it's incredible. Anyway, so yes, that's the rundown. That's everything that happens. And breaking it down beat for beat, obviously, I poke a lot of plot holes in it, but I do that with all movies. I've always loved this movie so much. It always will. Um, that being said, it's a huge bummer. It's awful when something that you've loved you find out after the fact has shitty elements to it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
especially now we're in the era of canceling people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this isn't the movie's fault per se. I mean, again, the character of Rochelle is very one note, is not well developed, is it is what it is. But what makes it even worse is that Rachel True is like been consistently blown off by fandom, by conventions. Like they will organize conventions with like craft reunions and stuff, and they'll invite Fairuza and they'll invite Robin and they'll invite Neve and just not invite Rachel.
How do you not invite Rachel?
Exactly. Like the movie is about four girls. Four girls. Four girls on the cover. Four girls in the circle. She's as much of a main character as the other girls. And they just don't... Because Rachel True came forward and was talking about it on Twitter. You know, she had this whole big long thread, which I encourage you to seek out, and not you, Julie, but you collectively, all of the listeners, because it's important. But it's been like that since the get-go. Like, she even, in her Twitter thread, she talks about how the MTV Awards, the year the movie came out,
Mm-hmm.
they had Fairuza, Robin, and Neve present an award, and didn't have Rachel do it. Rachel's in the audience, just watching.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Like, fucking give me a single reason why that might be, other than just straight up racism.
There isn't.
There isn't, exactly.
Straight
There's
up
no
racism, yeah.
just straight up racism. Speaking of racism in movies, especially genre movies, I highly recommend to everyone. There's a documentary on Shudder called Horror Noir, about the history of Black characters, Black filmmakers, just African American representation in general in horror films. It is directed by Xavier Berg. I highly recommend it. Rachel is one of the featured commentators on it, and she talks about her experience with the craft. There's Jordan Peele, Tony Todd, a bunch of amazing people in it. That being said, something to look forward to is the remake / sequel that they're working on. Words cannot express how excited I am for this. I'm so... Because at first they were trying to bill it as like a remake, but it's not. It's a sequel, essentially. But right out the gate, it's going to be superior because it's being written and directed by a woman. But it's going to be written and directed by Zoe Lister-Jones. She plays Jen on Life in Pieces, which is one of my favorite sitcoms. She had a recurring character on New Girls. She's the best. I love her. I'm so excited to see what she does with it. And it recently just leaked that there was a casting notice for one of the main girls. They're looking for Latina trans actresses.
Oh, excellent.
Excellent. I'm so excited. So one of the main girls, and not only is it excellent that there's going to be a trans character, but that they're actively seeking out trans actors and actresses. Because I swear to God, if I have to watch one more movie where a cis person plays a trans person, I'm going to lose my goddamn mind. It was really fun too when that casting notice leaked. Like going on Twitter and seeing a lot of Latina trans aspiring actresses, models, people like so excited for it. Because they're like, count me the fuck in. You know what I mean? Like actively seeing in real time how something like this can positively affect a community. It's just very heartwarming. And it just made my day. The movie, it's still in pre-production, but they are saying that it should be out by next year. So it'll probably be Halloween next year. I think would be a safe bet. So yeah, that's The Craft.
I just want to talk about one of my favorite parts of the end of the movie because once, so Nancy slits Sarah's wrists and she's like, "Why are you still bleeding?" And she like runs away and Sarah like lays on her floor and invokes the spirit. And after she does that, like Nancy makes the girls go check on her, and that glamour that she casts on them is brutal and fabulous. Like
Right.
it's their exact fear. Like they used her fears against her and she uses their fears against them. And it is poetic justice. I actually really like that part. And then the end part with Nancy, like when she makes Nancy like watch her fingers turn into snakes. I was like, and like even like the CGI that is bad from 2019 standpoint, it must have been mind blowing back then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like back then, like it actually doesn't. It's not that bad.
It really isn't that bad. Yeah.
It's not that bad. Like I really enjoyed it. Like I really enjoyed rewatching this movie, because it did make me think of being a kid, and it did make me think of like, oh my god, like I would have loved to have been like a teen witch. Like that's like I love that shit.
Yeah.
But that part specifically where she uses the power that she has invoked to like get them away from her to like defend, it's like defending herself. She's defending herself. She's keeping herself safe. She's not you. And also I always will forever love the whole idea of like, hey, by the way, I talked to the spirit and they're pissed at you. Like that. Oh yes, please sign me up for anything like that. I love those. I love that kind of shit. Like he's pissed at you, and here's your up and scum. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
rip at you. I really enjoyed that part. And then like, so at the end, were they moving back to San Francisco? Is that like what the end was implying, that they were moving back?
I don't know. I was actually thinking that too, and I was dumb, and I should have just rewound. But I think it was just groceries or something.
Oh, okay.
I'd have to look again, but yeah, I thought that too.
I love that, and like that's the thing too. Like after all that, those girls didn't stop being bitches. They really like she's Sarah powers.
Sarah fucking drops
changes the weather to like drop a branch nearly on them, and they're like, thanks, Sarah. Like,
I hope that Sarah isn't moving away at the end, because I love the idea of them also having to go to school together. And just right. Sarah's big flex.
Like, I feel like there are a lot of open-ended questions there now too, because like, what do you do as a teenager with that power? Like, you have to keep yourself in check, keep yourself, you know what I mean? Like, I think wouldn't that force you to grow up in a way? Yeah. Not that she hadn't already, considering what she's gone through, like her whole entire life, plus like her depression or whatever. Like that'll force you to grow up in certain ways anyway. But
yeah, it's a good analogy for trauma in general, affecting like how making you grow up quickly.
Yeah.
Speaking of teenage witches, did you finish watching Sabrina?
Not yet.
Oh, Julie.
I got distracted. I was distracted. I'm working on it. I'm like in episode 4 or something. I'm in the part where Madam Satan has come as a tarot reader. That's the episode I'm in.
Oh.
After Lupercalia.
Oh my God, just didn't even think I might have to do a whole episode on the chilling adventures of Sabrina, because that show is batshit insane. And I love it so much.
Feel you.
Alrighty, so where can people find you on social media, Julie?
You can find me on the twitter.com at allfleshesgrass, and you can find my podcast at Stick to Tape. There you go. There's a plug for you there. So if you like hockey, like you can check us out. So
And you can find me on Twitter at MXHillary with one L, MXHILARY. And I will eventually make social media accounts for this podcast. So look out for those in the near future. So thank you, Julie, so much for joining me for my first episode.
thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking about the craft. I'll come on literally anytime.
Yay! Wonderful. And thank you all for listening so much. And this is signing off from We Are The Weirdos, mister.